Rabbi.
Hello, how are you?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm wonderful, excited.
I am too. The show is called Between the L'chaims. So, Rabbi Mendi Fellig, L'chaim. A little sip.
Oh.
That's the real stuff. Okay.
Well, you know.
So I want to ask you a couple questions.
Yes.
Things that I have observed and what people observe about Orthodox rabbis, and they probably have questions. So you're Chabad, and that's spelled Chabad, Chabad rabbi, correct?
Yes.
Now, very briefly, I know you're Orthodox, and how is that different than other Orthodox sects? What do you call them? The different branches of Orthodox? Where do you follow? Because I've heard that Chabad is kind of like hippity-dippity. Is that correct? Does that sound what you've heard?
Well, I've never quite heard of it as hippity-dippity, but
Okay.
We'll give it a spin.
Okay, sounds good.
So what is, to address how Chabad fits into Orthodoxy, one would have to first say, well, what exactly is Orthodox Judaism, or what is Judaism? So I don't know that there's a short answer to the question.
Orthodox is more...
But if we talk about, rabbinic Judaism, as it's called in the academic circles, or God gave the 5 books to Moses and the Jewish people on the Mount Sinai. Mm-hmm. And with it, a code of study and how to deduce and to learn how to observe each of the various commandments. Okay. That is the same regardless of which area of Orthodoxy you're looking at.
Okay.
So all of the different branches, if you will, of Orthodoxy, they will all keep Shabbat, they will all keep kosher, they will all study the same Talmudic texts and the Mishnaic texts, and that is all the same. And going from one synagogue to another synagogue, you're going to find more or less a similar observance.
Okay.
Where it starts to diverge, if you will, some people are familiar with Sephardic Jewry, with Ashkenazic Jewry. That's Jews that are predominantly...
The ultra-Orthodox.
Before we even get to what we would call today the ultra-Orthodox, going back,
Let's not go back too far.
Too far, but you have Sephardic Jews. Those are Jews that are predominantly Spanish or from the Mediterranean peninsulas, Iran, Iraq, and all those places. Mm-hmm. Then you have the European Jews. Again, you will find the same. But what you will find differences is different melodies, a slightly different version of the prayer book. Things of that nature, where the focus of how things are celebrated.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Whether it's family or cultural or different aspects, and oftentimes that are influenced by the regions where they were.
Okay.
In the 18th century, in the 1700s, the Jews in Europe were at a particularly very low period of time. There was coming out of the Chmielnicki riots of 1648 and 1649, and many other such. Obviously 1492 was the Spanish Inquisition, but there were many others that people aren't aware of. Many other expulsions and limitations that were put on the Jewish people in those ages, and so the Chassidic movement starts to grow with Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov in the 1700s, and that's really, he brings in a more mystical lens to Judaism, if you will.
Okay, so Chabad is mystical, study more of the Kabbalah, mysticism,
Correct.
Things like that.
Correct.
Okay.
But more as a lens, and I think that's a very important thing that we have to know, because you asked how does it fit into the other branches of Judaism, of Orthodox Judaism, if you will. It's not that the observances are different. It's not that the texts are different. Mm-hmm. It's that the lens by which, or the flavor by which those ideas are actually celebrated or practiced. So there's a little bit of a different flavor, if you will, different focus, if you will. And Chabad is one of the branches of Chassidic Jewry.
Okay, let's move on. Let me ask you another question, because I have a lot of questions. I find that the Chabad men dress in white shirts, black pants. Now, you're not wearing that today, but is there like a dress code or something?
No.
No?
There's no dress code.
So where did that come from?
Well, typically, you'll find a more conservative dress, although it runs the gamut. If you went to my kids' school, my kids go to a Chabad school, you will find people dressed as you would anywhere else. They really wear any kind of clothing that they choose. There's no requirement.
Okay.
But people try to be a little bit more conservative because it's a little bit less flashy, less into fashion, there's less of a focus, if you will, onto what, to be unstylish is just as problematic as to be stylish. But to just be who you are, that's a little different. You do find other Hasidic sects that do have a definite dress code. And that really depends on where the particular sect came from. And a lot of that has to do with the turn of the century, when various countries were becoming more modernized and communities looking to preserve a certain austere behavior. They adopted certain dress codes, and it kind of stuck with the community. Chabad never did.
Okay.
Never had a formal dress code and still does not have a formal dress code.
Okay. What about the beard? What's with the beard?
The beard is a mystical.
Let's do mystical.
It's mystical. Well, first of all, the Torah says do not put a razor blade to your face. So it's actually a command from the Torah not to shave.
Okay.
Not with a razor blade. And then going back, there's the various
What about
texts.
scissors?
So scissors or creams
You can't
or
cut
other things.
anything.
So that's where some of the divergency comes from.
Wait, you can't put conditioner or wash
No,
your
you can
beard?
wash it, but like there are creams that will remove facial hair and things like that.
Oh.
So there are other ways, or burning. I mean, there's other ways to get creative. If you can't use a razor to your face, there are other ways you can get creative to remove facial hair. So that goes back to very complicated halachic Jewish legal text as to what would be permitted, what isn't permitted, what is the prohibition? Is the prohibition removing the facial hair from the face, or is it the destruction of the hair, and so on and so forth? And the Chabad tradition, actually, the third Chabad Rebbe actually has a long response which lists 7 different issues with removing facial hair. I will not bore you with all the details.
Correct.
However, the bigger reason for it is it says in the Kabbalah, it says in the Zohar that the 13 attributes of mercy flow through the beard, which is called as well. It has a similar name. The beard has, and therefore it's not how could you remove it? It's why would you remove it if you have access to such power? Why would you want to play with that?
So I heard something about all the blessings go.
The 13. So
through
when
the
Moses was on the mountain.
beard.
Right. So when Moses was on the mountain, most of us are familiar, many are familiar, that at the 40th day, the Jewish people made a golden calf. Mm-hmm. And when he came down, he obviously he was not too pleased. He broke the 10 commandments. And then God said, listen, I can't deal with these people. 40 days and they've already, where's this going? This is not going in a good place. And so he told Moses, let's start again. We'll get rid of the Jewish people. We'll start again. Cut our losses. We'll start again. Mm. And Moses said, that's not how this works. Mm. You asked me to lead them, and a leader doesn't give up his flock. And Moses sat for another 40 days on the mountain. And at the end, God said, I will teach you a prayer that if you're ever in need, this is the prayer. It's called the prayer of the 13 attributes of mercy. And it's recited on very special occasions, especially on Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Mm-hmm. But that energy, if you will, mm-hmm. it says in the Kabbalah, flows through the beard, through the facial hair.
Okay.
So therefore, it's a tremendously positive thing to have. So yes, the Torah does say do not shave, but you can always try to circumvent, figure out a way around it, or
some people, when their beards get long, they
roll it, they tug.
Up,
yeah,
right?
They roll it, they tug
okay.
it. Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't have to sweep the floor.
Right.
Obviously, everybody has a different genetics. So some people have longer beards or shorter beards or what have you. So it's not so much that you have to display your beard au naturel. However it comes out, that's the way it is. Some people choose to roll it. I choose not to roll it because I don't. To me, facial hair is facial hair. Either you have a beard or you don't have a beard. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to look less beardy if it's rolled up. But I suppose if I worked in a corporate environment where they had a stress on grooming or some certain places they have grooming limits and things like that, then people definitely have availed themselves to that possibility.
Okay, so do all rabbis have beards? Or what's the opposite of that? All right. Or do people with beards are not necessarily rabbis?
Correct. So
Okay.
the beard is not an indication that one is a rabbi.
So if somebody walks up to you, you're not necessarily a rabbi, you just happen to be Orthodox and you have a beard.
Now,
Okay.
that being said, the flip side of that is many people have passed the rabbinate, if you will. They have taken the requisite study courses. They have been tested, and they are proficient should they choose to be a rabbi. So they have the title, so to speak, but they don't practice as a rabbi. They don't have a congregation. They may not even use the title, the honorific. So oftentimes you'll meet somebody with a beard who's not a rabbi, although he may actually be a rabbi. So it's not a prerequisite to be or not to be a rabbi to have a beard, and having a beard and having the rabbinical studies doesn't necessarily mean that one is practicing as a rabbi.
Okay, so here's my next question. A lot of confusion on this. A lot of people think that, and Jews, obviously, because Jews in the secular world, conservative and Reform Jews, think that you have to be kosher, you have to be observant, you have to go to synagogue all the time to be part of Chabad.
So, how to approach?
You don't have to be observant, right?
Well, yeah. I'm trying to find the right entry point to answer the question. Every single Jew.
Because people don't go to Chabad because they think they have to be observant.
That's true.
But you don't have to be.
You don't have to be. When God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai, according to Jewish tradition, we know all the Jews that were living at the time were certainly at the mountain. But it says, according to Jewish tradition, all souls of all Jews that will be born in the future were there as well. So we received the Torah together for all of history. Every Jew in history received the Torah together. Therefore, it does not belong to one more than the other, and one cannot shirk it more than one can the other. What we do is different than what is, we have things that we own. We don't necessarily use them. Especially in this country, that we have homes that are full of goods that some of them we've never used and never will use. That doesn't make it less ours because we choose not to use it. We haven't used it, or maybe we've even forgotten that we have it. It's still ours. So the Torah belongs equally to every single Jew, man, woman, and child, from the beginning of time until the end of time.
Okay.
And so when you say, I am not observant, and therefore what, somehow that's not, it doesn't belong to, it's not your heritage, it doesn't belong to you, that doesn't make any sense. So when we say that one does not have to be observant to come to Chabad, that's true, because the Torah it's inherently yours.
But you don't
Even
have to keep kosher as well.
If you happen not to keep kosher, it doesn't make the Torah, which says keep kosher, less yours.
And you can still go to Chabad.
Absolutely, because whatever you're going to experience there is part of who you are as a person.
Okay.
So we go and we present ourselves as we are.
So you do outreach and not conversions. I mean, people who are not Jewish, who go to Chabad, which there seems to be.
Some people do, yeah. There's interest.
But you don't go out and convert people.
No. So Judaism.
That's not part of Judaism.
It's kind of interesting because I've seen Chabad described as being evangelical, like
not.
And it's not. It's just it's people, I think, don't really know what the word evangelical means. So it's like, people that go out and try to convert others to think the way they think or to observe the way they observe. So anybody who tries to have an influence on anybody else, that would be evangelical. But that's nothing to be further from the truth. Judaism as a whole is not looking to convert the world to Jews. That's not. It never was a precept of Judaism, and not only that, there's laws of how if one chooses to become Jewish, there's very strict laws how one is able to achieve that.
It's very difficult.
It's difficult, and to do it the proper kosher way, it's difficult, and there's a commitment, but yes, there's a process, but it's not something which is looked for even when somebody approaches. There's a requirement to to rebuff them and to push them away. And if they're truly sincere, and after showing that sincerity, yes, there's a process by which one can convert.
And they have to do it for themselves, not for like their spouse or
For themselves,
anything
and many other aspects to it.
Yeah.
Like we said before, the idea of that every single Jew received the Torah at Mount Sinai. When any Jew, it's Chabad or any Jew, when any Jew encourages another Jew to do another mitzvah, they are not proselytizing or evangelizing and trying to get somebody to come over to another side. It is merely helping somebody experience what is already theirs.
Okay. So let's talk more about the mysticism. Okay? Many things with Chabad is mystical. The way we pray, how we pray. And I say we because me too. And a lot of the things we eat and we do are mystical. So if you want to get really deep, you can with Chabad, knowing that there's something out there greater than yourself. Correct? Is that how Chabad works?
Well,
yeah.
So we asked before, what is Chabad? What separate? Where Chabad sits in the range of, and I use the analogy of a lens. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of misconceptions and confusion when it comes to mysticism. There are people like, I practice Kabbalah. Well,
you do.
Well, what does that mean? How can you practice Kabbalah? There are no Kabbalistic precepts. There's only a lens by which to observe the 5 books of Moses and the laws. So Kabbalah in and of itself is almost like a lens by which to see something. Deeper. So if somebody looks through a window at a white wall, they will see white. If there's various tints to the window, then it'll just be a variation of the same wall. So practicing Kabbalah as a practice is really just looking through a lens at nothing. But when we apply it to the actual mitzvot, the actual commandments, the actual observance, they lend a flavor by which, if you look today, we can understand this very simply because we all have phones with filters, and we can take the same picture and add, an endless amount of filters to it, and sometimes subtly or sometimes drastically change or enhance the pictures that we're looking through. So Kabbalah is kind of like that spice, that lens by which we can look at the observance, the prayer, the weekly portion, the observances of what we're doing at the Pesach Seder, which is coming up, how we understand what the matzah is, what the 4 cups of wine are, what the maror is. Outside of it, it's very basic, simple, purpose. There's a deeper purpose, and yes, there's a whole kaleidoscope of value to the Kabbalistic and the mystical that then can be incorporated into the actual observance. Case in point, if somebody sits and meditates all night of Passover about the importance of eating matzah and drinking 4 cups of wine and making a Seder, but doesn't actually do it, they haven't done anything. Whereas if somebody sits down at the Seder having no clue what is going on, no clue what matzah is, no clue why they're doing it, but has the matzah, has the 4 cups of wine, has the maror, has the bitter herb, has the sandwich, they've observed it. So the starting
even
point,
though they have no idea.
Even though they have no idea, because the starting point, we live in a world of action, of deed. This world is a world of doing. Okay. So ground level always is doing. And then building upon that, of course, why do we do things? Why do as you grow as a human being, a child, when you talk to a child, you say, go to bed. Why? What do you mean why? Because I told you to. There's it's not a discussion. But as you get older, you can start to talk to you. Well, you got to go to bed because if you don't go to bed, you're going to be tired. And if you're tired, it'll be difficult tomorrow, and then you'll have a hard time. I don't know. You're excited to go have a play date, and you're not going to be able. So the child can start to understand. The reasoning of a child is going to be very different than the reasoning of a teenager. The child doesn't want to be tired because they have a play date. Mm. Your teenager will probably say, "Oh, I can play through being tired, not a problem." But if I don't get good sleep, I won't be able to do well on my test because my mind won't be focused. So the incentive is different. An adult is very different. They don't care about the test. They have responsibilities. They have relationships. So it's kind of the building blocks that that you start in the beginning. We have commandments that we're supposed to do. We have things, we have obligations that we're supposed to take care of. That's the ground. That's the entry level, and then building upon that is the legal reasons, the logical reasons, the understood reasons, and then as we filter through those, we have the mystical reasons as well, and each one adds a dimension. So yes, we have to constantly. Somebody said, "No, I'm good. I don't need to know anything. I'm good. Just give me the matzah, give me the wine. I'm good."
And that's okay.
And that's fine as an entry. Great,
yes.
That's fantastic. But we should want as human beings, as Jews, we should want to grow. We should want to go deeper.
Right.
And the next year might be, last year was good. I came to the Seder. I've never been to a Seder before, or I haven't been to a Seder in a long time since my grandmother and my grandfather passed away and the family stopped getting together. Okay, so let me come. But the next year, okay, you've done that. Well, why don't we spend some time and say, well, why do we have a Seder? Why do we have matzahs? Maybe the next year it's why do we have 3 matzahs and 4 cups of wine? And so on and so forth. There's a constant growth.
Yeah.
We don't,
But that's life in general, isn't it?
And it should be. It should be.
Yes.
So life in general, we do that. We keep growing. We keep reading. What is that? One of the highest selling areas of books or online self-help. We're always looking for ways to improve. So our Judaism is the same way. If we look at our Judaism ground level, whether that's ground level because we went to Hebrew school as a kid or because whatever we did in our homes growing up, so then that's going to be great as a kid, okay as a teenager, horrible as an adult, because you're going to look back and you're like, well, what did they tell me in my Hebrew school? They told me, a few stories and that was it. Like,
and a lot of people, and by the way, a lot of people after their bat mitzvah, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done with, for whatever reason, and that's okay too. A lot of them come back later.
Sure.
Do you find that with religion as a whole, that people, I've heard it say that people use religion as a crutch when the going gets tough, versus the going gets tough, so you have the tools based upon your religion to help you through the tough times. Two different. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I hear. I'm digesting the question.
Yeah.
Who was it that said religion is the opioids of the masses?
Oh, that's interesting.
I believe that's a quote, or if not, I just made it up, and you can attribute it to me. And in many civilizations, it has been employed that way. But the interesting thing I think about the word religion or religious is that it probably isn't really what people think it is. And what I mean by that is, I meet people. I meet a lot of people. You probably also meet people, and you say, why don't you come for a Shabbat dinner? Why don't you do it? I say, no, I'm not religious. So what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything?
Right.
So no, religion. Are you a human being? Well, yeah, you're talking to me. And you're composed of 2 parts, I would assume. One would be your physical body, which I can see. And then there's an unexplainable part of you, which we'll call it a soul. There's a spiritual dimension. Where do your thoughts come from? Where does your life come from? Because a person who is no longer living, the body is still there, but it's completely inanimated. So there's another dimension of a living human being, which cannot be observed in a physical sense. There has to be a certain leap. I know it's there because I'm interacting with it, but I cannot see it. I cannot touch it. I don't know even what it does. I just know that it does. So every human being, and certainly every Jew, is comprised of a body and a soul. So there's different aspects. So rather than focusing on, am I a religious person or am I involved in religion, I think we have to take a step back and say, well, let's first talk about physical needs and spiritual needs. If we're composed of 2 parts, then we should endeavor to take care of both parts. So if you go to the gym and you eat and you have relationships and you study and you do whatever it is that you do to take care of your the physicality of who you are, then there are things that one would assume one must do to take care of their spirituality. Mm-hmm. Religion is a way to express spirituality, but it isn't the same as spirituality. There are spiritual aspects to religion, But religion can and being religious can exist without spirituality. People religiously go to the gym. People have an orthodoxy of how they experience politics. So a lot of the same words that we use when it comes to spirituality are words that we actually use as they relate to other things. So I think it's not so much people say, oh, I don't want to go there, it's too religious. Well, yeah, you don't go there. Why would you want to do anything that's religious? Religious, it can get quite, it can be
overwhelming.
It can be quite the opposite of what you think it might bring you. Why don't we instead focus on the spirituality?
Yeah.
If I have a soul, which we have, what might my soul want to do? How can I feed my soul? How can I express my soul?
Okay.
And that, I think, is a very different way of seeing it.
Okay. We're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
And we're going to have a little game.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? This is going to be like a speedy game here. I'm going to
Okay.
ask you some questions. You just answer them. Ready?
Oh, boy.
Okay, ready? Favorite color?
Blue.
Dog or cat?
Neither.
Fame or money?
Money.
Steak, fish, or chicken?
Steak.
Sit or lay down?
Sit.
Book or movie?
Book.
Stay home or travel? Oof.
Each have a very,
Okay.
I don't know how to answer that.
Favorite food?
Licorice.
Interesting. Shower or bath?
Shower.
Eat at home or go to a restaurant?
Home.
Social bunny or loner?
Neither.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
House or condo?
House.
Comedy or tragedy?
Comedy.
Casual or formal?
Casual.
Favorite meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Dinner.
Pool or ocean?
Pool.
City or country?
I like aspects of both.
Okay, very good. Rabbi, I love this. Let's do a l'chaim. Between the l'chaims.
L'chaim.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Indeed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.